Good evening. I'm the Karmic Debt Collector, guardian of the ledger where no deserving deed goes undocumented. Tonight we walk along the fog-shrouded streets of Victorian London, where a wife's ambition poisoned more than just her husband's tea. Sit back, dim the lights, and bear witness to tonight's entry, the Gaslight Poisoner. Our story begins with lovely Lady Angeline Barriston, standing in a darkened alley on the wrong side of London, facing a man whose name she will never learn. Hushed words are exchanged between the duo, and Angeline pulls out a handful of coins from her bag and hands them to the man. Through the chill of the night air, Angeline's words, "Are you sure?" lilt through the fog like a distant whisper. The man nods his head and quietly says, "Remember, just a few drops at a time," before he exchanges the coins for a small, dark bottle. Her mind races as her form glides down the street like a wraith in the shadows of the gaslights above. Each gaslight struggles to pierce the thick fog, appearing as giant orbs of golden light. They cast weak, flickering reflections on the wet cobblestone streets. Her hurried pace belied her calm demeanor. Within a few blocks, she reached a major intersection where she was able to wave down a passing carriage. The horse quickly came to a stop, standing tall and strong in the evening damp. It only allowed a slight shiver to run along its flank as it waited to start moving again. The driver jumped down and immediately held the carriage door open for the lady. Angeline barely looked at the man and simply said, "Barriston Manor," as she boarded. The man said, "Yes, Mum," climbed back into his seat and signaled the horse to start moving. As they made their way down the wet streets, Angeline glared at the dark bottle in her hand like it was something precious and dangerous at the same time. She then tucked the bottle deep into the folds of her dress, exhaled slowly, and smiled. At Barriston Manor, a household servant raced over and opened the door for Lady Barriston. She wordlessly exited the carriage and entered the manor without a backward glance. The servant then handed a few coins to the carriage driver. He returned back to his seat and headed off into the night. As she entered the marble entrance hall, an older, dignified man emerged from his study. They met each other in the middle of the ornate room and gently hugged each other. Lord Barriston took his wife's hands in his and said, "How's your friend Lady Appleton? I hope your presence made her feel a bit better after the passing of her mother." Lady Barriston gave him a warm smile as she gently bowed her head and said, "Thank you, darling. I do hope my company helped her find some peace, and thank you again for allowing me to comfort a grieving friend. Think nothing of it, my love. What purpose is life if we can't be there for those we love? But your hands are very cold, and you are wet from the night air." He then waved to a maid and said, "Clara, be a dear and see to Lady Barriston's needs. See that she gets out of these wet clothes and into a warm bath." Clara nodded and said, "Yes, my lord." Lady Barriston hugged her husband one more time, then said, "Good night, husband. I will see you in the morning. Please don't stay up too late poring over those books of yours." When Angeline entered her private chambers, her demeanor changed. Clara tried to help her remove the wet dress, but Angeline barked at her, saying that she was useless and that she would undress herself. In reality, she was scared that Clara would accidentally find the bottle she so carefully hid. Clara bowed and raced off to prepare the lady's bath. Angeline entered the bath, hiding the bottle within her robe pocket. Again, she angrily told Clara to wait outside the room until summoned. Clara slowly backed out of the room and closed the door, but not before overhearing Lady Barriston whisper, "Soon, my love, soon," as she pulled the bottle from her pocket, disrobed, and entered the hot bath. Clara picked up the damp clothing from the floor, put them in the hallway laundry chute, and returned to the lady's chambers to await her will. She wasn't sure what the lady meant, but from her tone, she knew it meant nothing good. If she said anything, she might risk her job. Probably it was better to be the invisible person she was trained to be. The next morning at breakfast, Angeline greets her husband warmly. She listens intently as he goes over some of the charities he wants to leave the bulk of his fortune to when his time eventually comes. Angeline purrs as she celebrates his choices and tells him all the wonderful things his wealth will do for the world. After all, Lord Theobald Barriston was a very fortunate and prosperous businessman who had built an empire on trade and banking. His days were brightened whenever he thought of the good his wealth would do, and the sins it would help soothe. He also made sure to reiterate to Angeline that her comfort was his main priority, and that she would have enough to live a very comfortable life. Angeline smiled gently, placed her hand in his, and said, "Dear husband, let's not speak of such dark things. You are what I want in life, not your money. You've always been an excellent provider, and I trust your judgment implicitly." Shortly after breakfast, Lord Barriston left for meetings in the city, and Angeline put her plan into action. She silently slipped into her husband's study. The smell of leather, parchment, and lamp oil filled the room. As she circled the room, opening windows to let fresh air in, she eyed the silver cart near his desk that held a gold and crystal decanter of his favorite wine, along with several matching glasses. She stood for a moment, listening for any sound of approaching footsteps. When she heard none, she produced a dark bottle from the folds of her dress and poured a few drops into the decanter. Over the next several days, the pattern remained the same. Each visit to the study found the dark bottle a few drops lighter. Theobald slowly started complaining of fatigue and stomach issues. Angeline instructed the servants to send for the family doctor, as she feigned distress over her poor husband's health. As they waited for the doctor, she gently chided him about eating in those dodgy places when he was in town. Who knows what they put in that wretched food? She fretted with carefully weighed concern. The doctor arrived, and after examining Lord Barriston completely, said that he had gastric fever. He then prescribed laudanum to calm his stomach and help relieve the discomfort. The doctor left strict instructions to get rest, not to eat spicy food, and to continue taking laudanum every time the symptoms kicked up. Lady Barriston thanked the doctor profusely and walked him to the door, making promises to keep him informed if the Lord's condition changed at all. After a short time, high society buzzed with rumors of Lord Barriston's illness. Minor players tried to pay visits to the Lord in hopes of gaining favor, but Lady Barriston left strict orders that her husband needed rest and would not be receiving any visitors. Of course, the only visitors to breach her wall of protection were the family doctor, his business partner, and household staff. Angeline had taken special care to assign Clara as his full-time aide. If things were ever to go bad, she wanted that one to take the fall. Every night, Theobald's loyal wife would personally bring him a glass of wine for a nightcap. She would purposely hand it to Clara with instructions to give it to her husband after his evening bath. Time went on slowly. Lord Barriston's symptoms got worse, not better. He developed a burning, dry sensation in his throat that no amount of wine or water could douse. Clara kept a steady vigil for her master, fed him, bathed him, administered his medicine, and saw to his every comfort. She didn't do it out of a sense of duty, but because even though she was just a maid, he had always treated her very kindly. And as scandalous as it was, she considered him a father figure. In his pain and delirium, he would talk to her about anything and everything. Some of the stories were a product of a confused mind, others were about his youth, and some were confessions from his soul. On a rainy evening, just after his sun had set beyond the horizon, a messenger arrived. Clara had been nearest the front door at that moment, greeted the messenger, and took the package from him. She then dutifully brought the package to Lady Barriston and immediately left to continue her care for the Lord. In the privacy of her chambers, Angeline opened the package and pulled out a masterfully forged will. It was made by the preeminent forger in London, so she knew it would pass any scrutiny. The final piece of her plan was in play. Time for the final dose. Right on schedule, a concerned and loving wife appeared at her husband's door. She handed the glass of wine to Clara and went to sit beside her husband. She held his hand, held back fake tears, and prayed that his health would soon find him again. Later that night, while wild dogs howled outside the window, Lord Barriston breathed his last. Clara heard the last raspy breaths. She tried fruitlessly to shake her lord awake. He wouldn't stir. His skin had gone cold and dry. his eyes pale and without light. Clara tried to scream, but her sobs wouldn't let her. She went running from the room, headed to her lady's chambers. She gathered all her strength, knocked, then entered the room. She broke down at the side of Angeline's bed, choking out the words, "The master is gone. The Lord, your husband, has passed." Angeline fought hard to hide her excitement. She yelled, "What are you saying? Take me to my husband at once and summon the doctor." By this time, the entire house was awake, and word of the Lord's death already circulated among the staff. Angeline entered her husband's chambers and yelled, "Leave me!" through controlled sobs. She threw herself across her husband's body as the doors to the chamber closed. Once the doors closed, her sobs turned into a soft chuckle as she said, "Good night, dear husband. So happy to see you go." The doctor eventually came, and Angeline played the grieving wife to the hilt. She demanded to know why gastric fever could take her husband's life. The doctor gave him a brief examination and noticed some faint striping under his fingernails. He then said, "I can't know for sure until I get him to the morgue for a full examination, but it appears that he may have been poisoned." Angeline then screamed and pointed at Clara. "Her! It must have been her! She's been the only one to feed him for weeks." Clara's eyes widened, started crying, screaming, "No, I would never." Then she ran off quickly, not wanting to be arrested or found in any kind of trouble. The doctor then said it may have been her, or it may have been done by himself. He knew he was dying of consumption, and his time was limited. This may have been a more dignified way for him to go. Lady Barriston looked genuinely shocked. He never said anything about consumption. The doctor told her that the Lord had sworn him to secrecy because he didn't want her to worry. Internally, Angeline knew that this news made her win even more secure. No one would ever question the death, even if they did find the poison. And if they did, it would either be blamed on Clara or her husband ending things on his own terms. After the Lord was removed from the manor, Lady Barriston went to her chambers and demanded to be left alone so she could grieve in peace. She sat at her desk and poured herself a large glass of wine. As she congratulated herself on a plan well laid, she drank deeply in order to calm her adrenaline-fueled nerves. Then she refilled the glass and drained that one as well, while she smiled and dreamed of a future of luxury and adventure that her new wealth would bring her. That's when the cramps hit her. She crumpled to the floor in so much pain that she couldn't breathe. Her cries for help came out as pathetic gasps for air. Suddenly she noticed Clara standing in front of her, tears of loss and disgust flowing down her face. A dark bottle grasped tightly in her hand. Angeline reached for her, trying to beg for help. Clara just quietly opened Angeline's desk drawer and removed the forged will. Then she pulled a note from her pocket. "The Lord was much smarter than you could ever be. At first he was blinded by his love for you, but once he understood what was happening, he knew that you were behind it. He let it happen because it was swifter and less tragic than the fate that was awaiting him. He had me use my connections to help counter your plans. The servants who you thought invisible were around you at all times. Your arrogance and hate made you confuse silence with solitude. He didn't want you to win. He knew you would forge the will and who you would use to do that forgery. So he had the same person make this note from you, saying, 'My one true love is gone. All I ever wanted was his love. Now that he is gone, I can do naught but rush to his side. Angeline.' With that, Clara placed the note on the desk and silently walked out. Thank you for joining me for tonight's tale. I am the Karmic Debt Collector, and another debt has been paid. Until next time, remember, karma always gets its due. What are your tales of karma being served? Let me know down in the comments, and they may just inspire future stories of mine. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you in the next video.